We continue our working day at Ukraine Crisis Media Center. We greet everyone who joined us here today, who are here in this hall and who watches us online. Now we're going to speak about Ukraine doesn't need money, why half of the international loans is not used. Our guests are Hanna Hopko, MP, Independent Head of Parliamentary Committee for Foreign Affairs. Also Viktor Mazyarchuk, Head of Office of Financial and Economic Analysis of the Supreme Council, Batkivschyna, Executive Director of the Center of Economic Strategy, and Oleksiy Ryabchyn, People's Deputy. Good afternoon, dear colleagues. Today's press conference is really important, especially after Brussels at the Summit of Eastern Partnership. They announced future macro-financial help to Ukraine, 1.8 billion, and this is a good signal of support of Ukraine, but whether Ukraine has a proper strategy where this macro-financial economy goes, and also the President discussed the issue of the map of using these resources and support. So the map of support for Ukraine from the side of Europe and investment from Europe. So we saw the report of the accounting chamber concerning the use of funds of international organizations, and we saw that only 49% of those loans that were got during 2014-2016 were really used. And in the same report, we have on the site of this institution that the low level of sampling is concerning the implementation and different strategies. These are energy efficiency, reforming of housing sector, infrastructure projects, and also we see that there is inefficiency in some ministries that are responsible for these funds that we get in order to develop. And we see such a simple picture, some sabotage or delay in the use of money that was provided by international financial institutions. And we see that there is a delay in introduction of facilities, and also the delay in the repayment of debts. And also we want to provide some recommendations to the government, and Oleksiy Ryabchyn will tell us about energy efficiency. So we call on the government to have a meeting in order, together with the representatives of the ministry, to assess the situation, to study recommendations of the accounting chamber, and to understand why this money is not properly used, because often international donors, when we advocate investment plans for Ukraine, they state that there is low institutional capabilities of Ukraine to absorb the money that was received. And the last example that is really sad, 400 million from the investment bank. This agreement was done and ratified by the parliament. 400 million should have gone to small and medium-sized farmer enterprises, but if you ask everyone from agrarians whether they got the access to this money, this program was not started yet. So there is an issue how to speed up this project, how to create proper competition in order that recipients of this money were able to use them in different sectors, in energy, housing. That's why we should develop proper strategy of economic development, and in what fields we need to invest. And the European Union, they do not say about the do not speak about moratorium on the wood processing, and the wood processing industry saw first investments, and they do not speak about it now, but there are many important aspects such as anti-corruption and automatic verification of electronic declarations, reforms and implementation of laws that were adopted, medical reform, education reform, and energy sector reform, and further tranches of macro-financial support. They will be provided, but we should have clear strategy of our needs, where this money should go, and also for us it is important to speed up the launch of the projects, to get this money and to monitor its use in order not to see the such situation we face now. And there should be proper state strategy and quality projects, and then we should monitor the use of this money. We travel throughout Ukraine, and citizens ask where we can find information about credit support, the spheres they are used in, and what is the availability of this. So there is OpenAid.gov.ua resource, but this is not enough to have full and transparent information about international support and its use for all the participants of the process, by the state, by the society. So there should be a proper strategy of the state concerning priority areas that we should promote and develop, where credits are really needed, and also the management of these funds and the improvement of capabilities. Maybe some more specialists should be hired, because, and also there should be proper control of the use of this money, because we see that there is some inefficiency in implementing the projects, and together with the information centers, we try to stimulate proper actions from the side of the government in order to resolve the issues of inefficiency, and also low sampling of 49%, in order that these reports were taken into account, because European investment plan for Ukraine, Marshall Plan, we speak about that it should be extended, and Canada will head the G7, and we have the opportunity to establish proper areas. For example, Japan, innovations, Germany, restoration of the East. So we should combine these instruments for development of Ukraine, but for this we need supervisory board, we need control, we should improve the investment climate, and to increase institutional capabilities and absorption of funds before getting new assistance. I give the floor to Oleksiy Ryabchyn. I thank Anna, and we are really glad that we can draw attention of the public to this issue. As of 2017, the portfolio is 33 projects of 3.2 billion and dollars and more than 4 billion euros. This is for energy efficiency and energy independence, infrastructure, and the housing sector. I had subcommittee on energy efficiency, and I'm the representative of Batkivschyna faction, and we want that our country to be energy efficient and independent. So we should choose properly. So in 2015 we have 49, and in 2016 it was 42%. If we compare it with 2011, we had about 90 10%. So it is unpleasant to say that we worked in that year more efficiently than now. So we should look at the projects, the project of rehabilitation of the station and efficiency of modernization of pipelines and energy plant security and infrastructure, energy efficiency. So these are the projects. The sampling is about 10%. So there were international and Ukrainian experts. They get proper salary, but nothing is done. Nothing is done at local level. Nothing is done at the national level. And we, as Ukraine, we continue to pay interest. And there are grants and there are credits, and we see that in 2014, 2016, we paid commission on 33 billion euro and $6 billion. The projects are not implemented, but we continue to pay. And when the government say that we lack funds to restore Donbass, if you go there, in Luganshina we had the worst roads in Ukraine. But I always say that there is money of international organizations, and maybe we know about corruption, and we created a lot of anti-corruption organizations. It is much more difficult to steal this money. Maybe that's why this money is not properly used. But I believe that in the world there is a lot of free money that could come to Ukraine. But if we won't use the money we got, we heard from President Trump, why should American taxpayers they allocate money to international organizations, and US leaves many international organizations. They do not want to pay contributions there and do not want to provide this support. So, and many organizations can, and in the world there is a lot of money that can be brought to Ukraine in order to promote energy efficiency, build the roads, so we can construct quality roads. And also we have many issues concerning housing. Unfortunately, this money is not used, and we made an announcement concerning this report of the accounting chamber, and we asked the government to choose priority to appoint responsible people who will be responsible for successes and failure. And also online register, it is good, but this is not enough. It should be constantly updated, and journalists should be able to use it properly in order to follow these things. Thank you. Thank you. Ushlinsky Glib, Executive Director of the Center of Economic Strategy. I would like to speak about the overall issue, why the use of the money of international organizations is so important. We see now that in order to create positive and stable situation in Ukraine, we should speed up processes in order to restore after our economy fell 17% in 2014. And the precondition for this is the increase of investment. In 2015, the overall of capital investments in Ukraine was at the lowest level in the history of Ukraine, and now it is not restored. It's about 15%. That is much lower than 10 years ago, when it was about 25%. And in as or for example, lower than in Poland. And in order to increase, we need to introduce international investment, and Ukrainian economy after all these crises. We didn't have proper increase in 10 years. We had 2 crises, and in 2010 there was economic increase because external prices for raw materials increased, and then we had 2.5 years of stagnation. So what should be done in order to increase investment, foreign investment? As of today, in Ukraine, we have some risks, and our colleagues from the Supreme Council should deal with corruption and mistrust to judiciary. These are the main obstacles for international investment, as it is shown in the surveys, and we won't be able to change this in one day. Also, we have external risks connected with the aggressive policy of Russia in the east, and taking into account, we should understand that investment of intergovernmental and governmental level, they are important for Ukraine, and this is not only the report of the accounting chamber, and this is really an important issue. We should work more closely with the European Investment Bank, and we should also be helped by our Lithuanian colleagues. And in order to be successful, it is not said in this report directly, but I see that in Ukraine there is no proper project management. The only state institution that have a system of project management system, this is the National Bank of Ukraine. They have a proper system, and people work daily on this, and there is a project structure, and people from different departments reform the structure of the National Bank, or change the system of currency regulations, or to provide for the rights of the creditors. So the same should be done with the project management structure concerning international projects. And as we see from this report, there should be timely completion of the phases of the projects, and the majority of ministries, they are in delay in the implementation of the stages of projects, and if we do not get money 1 month, this money can be got further, but new programs won't be launched, and we won't get additional money that would accelerate investment, not only directly, but also in the result of speed up of consumption due to economic growth, and we lose this opportunity. And as Anna said, concerning European plan for Ukraine, we see that the main problem is the absence of state structure, a special body, or maybe a project structure that is built with people who know proper information and have proper skills, and we should form a proposal for European partners that will be mutually beneficial and would contribute to the economic development of Ukraine. I would like to give the floor to Viktor Mazyarchuk, and he has a proper experience of the projects and the efficiency. And there are many aspects where for Ukrainian side it is first we should establish our priority and our strategy, and then we will be able to move forward. So I would like to speak about the efficiency of the use of money that is provided to Ukraine. First, I would like to thank Anna, Oleksiy, and all your team that you've paid attention to the accounting chamber report, because this is the function of people's deputies to control the activity of the government through such institution as the accounting chamber. And so this is the monitoring of the activity of the government. Why it is so important? Because at our office for more than a year we are trying to bring information to people's deputies, the importance of this report that are compiled by the accounting chamber. There are many details we won't speak about today, but speaking about our main topic, I would like to repeat the words of Ghana. The main problem that was stated in the report is the strategy in different fields, in the strategy of the use of funds in the fields is absent. So some money is provided to non-efficient the money is provided to non-efficient areas. So we should identify our priorities first. We should systematize them. And what we see in our daily work, strategic documents do not correspond each other, and there are some contradictions. And strategy of Ukraine 2020, it contradicts in some aspect to mid-term plan of the government 2020. So it cannot be so. This is first. Second, and it goes from the report of the accounting chamber, and unfortunately, and this is the big problem of state governance, people who write reports, they are not specialists in these matters. The low quality of personnel who write these reports. I would like to mention some aspects that are in this report. The project to increase energy efficiency in the sector of central energy supply, 380 million doesn't have proper economic feasibility. So this cannot be so a priori. This is a big problem, and this is concerning quality of personnel. So we should train the representatives of local government and other officials how to write these project applications. Second, at the level, so I can cite a lot of things. I do not want to spend much time on this. We have 50% of funds that were not used, and we have 10% of money that that we return. So Ukraine returns allocated money back. So they allocated money, and we used them for unknown purposes, or we return this money. So this is third aspect, and the next one, the next aspect is that we pay interests for the use of credits, for the use of loans and commission. This is not grant. This money is not grant, and we should understand clearly that this is money that in the future we should return with interest. And there are projects when we took money and this money was not used, but commission is paid. The fourth problem, the absence of systemic monitoring of the use of funds of international technical assistance, and this is the problem that was at the Ministry of Economy. Now this problem is in the Ministry of Finance. There is monitoring, but there is lack of in monitoring of efficiency. Not what money was used, but whether this money was used to reach maximum efficiency. And the Ministry of Finance should provide for this. And there is also a fifth thing, and it is connected with the work of the accounting chamber. And unfortunately, because people's deputies are too busy, and unfortunately it is difficult to renew the I would like to speak about technical things. This report is 40 or 50 pages of professionally written text, but it is not easy to read. And our office, we make this on one page for deputies to read, and this is the question to so you can get this one page and you can understand the problem. So when accounting chamber will produce such will be able to produce such reports, it will be easier. And the maximum number of people's deputies, they then will understand the problem. Thank you. I think that now it's time for questions. Please introduce yourself first. Olena Laskunzik, TV channel. About the money that is not used. On what accounts is this money, and is there any term for their use? They are in the treasury on a special account. In the treasury on the special account, and it can be used by relevant organization if this is the energy Ministry of Energy, if it is state enterprise. So this is separately so if this money is not if this money is allocated, this money can be physically in Europe because this is their money, and then there is a special procedure. The account opens, and then you can get this money. For example, it can be in Germany, in EU, but this money is reserved. It cannot be spent to other projects. And for example, they allocated 1 billion euro to Ukraine, but for example, if you do not use it, we cannot spend it for other countries, and the competition in the world is really high for this money. And why do they hold this money for 2 or 3 years? They remain not invested in the countries that can produce proper results. So this is not about physical availability, but it is whether they work or not. So if this money is allocated, so this money, they are reserved for Ukraine, for example, for 3 years. So this money can be returned and provided to someone else. Good afternoon, Taras Semenyuk, Short Media. I'm interested in such a topic. Who pays interest, the state or the entrepreneur who used this money for some project? And what is this percent? The state pays. I will show to you. I said about percentage, maybe this is in the report. So I can tell you about state enterprises, for example, Ukrzaliznytsia. So the percentage is paid by the enterprise. Also, if they do not use it, there are some sanctions, Oleksiy said. So we pay the interest as of 2017. They used the interest for the projects that were realized 2014, 2016, 43, and so there is commission and there is percentage. So commission is the fine. These are services connected with the provision of the credits. So these are penalty, this is fine, and also there is interest for the use of the money. But this is good if the project is successful. So these organizations, they provide money at a more beneficial basis, and this investment projects that are implemented, they should provide good interest, and this is also, this can be some social goal. In this report, there are projects that are implemented in social policy or in the sphere of healthcare. So you cannot assess this directly, that you will get some benefit in money, that you will improve the system of healthcare for the citizens, but in the result, there will be indirect benefits. We will spend less budget money for treatment of people. They will work more, they will be more productive, they will be working longer, and will create value, added value in the economy. When we say that we get loans from international financial institutions, and when we speak about farmer enterprises access to this fund, if now a farmer can get the loan 20% in Ukrainian bank, and this is really difficult when we say about International Investment Bank. So the farmer can get this loan at 5 or 7%. So this is the main sense, to get access to credits at low interest. So this so it is not about liquidity of banks. This investment for the farmer should get a credit at a lower rate, and we spoke with the government in order to create a mechanism and to reduce bureaucracy. And when we speak about European Investment Bank and investments in the sectors of real economy and attraction of this fund, there should be credits at a lower rate for medium and small-sized enterprises, in order that end recipient got competitive and cheaper money with simple management and control. Віталій Княженський, День Newspaper. I see that you believe that in this case, the main is establishing priorities. I would mention one priority. This is the restoration of the livestock in Ukraine. What priorities you believe are the most important for Ukraine for international support? So here we do not have deputies who deal with the agrarian sector professionally, but we believe that there will be a big battle in the sector for the budget. There are two concepts: whether to return VAT to the agrarians who deal with livestock, or to so now these battles will be in the Budget Commission, and this is not the issue of international assistance, this is the strategy of the state, but about our priority and why I came here. For me, the most important is energy efficiency. This money is allocated for energy efficiency. I believe that energy efficiency is of priority. Our country should use less resources. Not that people disconnect from gas, but due to installation of metering devices, and we should increase our extraction of energy resources and be more independent from other states. And we have a lot of deposits, and we can export to Europe and do not depend on international help. And we adopted the law on energy efficiency, and this is a government draft law by Zovko. And he attended the meeting on our committee, and we got 282 votes, and we still do not have the fund, but the money was allocated, 20 million from government of Germany, and European Commission and German government, they understand that energy efficiency is really important in Ukraine, but bureaucracy and procedures and register do not allow this heating season in this heating season to create this fund. And for warm credits, 600 million were allocated, and that's why we came here and we speak about these matters. So energy efficiency, infrastructure, support of small and medium-sized business, housing sector. Oleksiy said about energy efficiency, and the government should propose the strategy of reforming of the sector and what will be in the sector, what legislation should be adopted, and we should have created this fund of energy efficiency. It was should be created. So there should be proper legislative basis for this. When we speak about railway transportation or sea transportation, maybe a law on concession should be adopted. So we got a lot of credits, a lot of loans in energy efficiency sector, but this is fragmental. This is what donors wanted to give us, and we had some projects before in Donbas before 2014 in the territories of Donbas that are now occupied. So some money was returned. So there should be proper strategy of the development of the fields, for example, in order to understand that we have proper priorities in use of this money. So we have a strategy, but in the sphere of energy, they just want to survive the winter. This is the only strategy now in the sector. So shortly about livestock. So we have direct state support of this field, and also there is indirect support. For example, in Mironivsky bread product, Mironivsky хлебопродукт. So they also provide, and we have moratorium on selling of agricultural lands, and here we can have so land is important for production, and now we see that Mironivsky Хлебпродукт, it goes to European market and uses the opportunity of the trade agreement, and they invest in European enterprises, and they bring products without customs duty. But speaking about the key issue, there are two directions. First, infrastructure, the broadening of when we rebuilt our chain of supply from the from the post-Soviet state to the European countries, this is about infrastructure of roads and ports, and also the investments. And investment to create proper employment in the areas of that need proper investment, taking into account the problem with the distribution of international investment. So this is the brief question. But I didn't say that the development of livestock, this is not only about this area. This is also energy efficiency, the use of bioresources, the development of machine building for this purpose. Thank you. I fully agree with you, and it is great that you specified your question. In 2013, in Volnovakha town, it was before the war, 20 kilometers from Donetsk. This is a small agrarian enterprise. They decided to tell from the EBRD the loan for biogas cogeneration station, and in 2014-2015 there were military actions near Volnovakha, and the terrorists shot at the bus, and no one wanted to invest money there, and people didn't go to build this plant, and the people paid percentage. And then this biogas plant was built, and it is 20 kilometers from the front line. And for EBRD, this is an exemplary project. They wanted to complete it, and there was a situation that a year ago the technicians from Germany and other countries, they went there because insurance companies, they didn't want people to go there, and so we didn't have quorum in the regulator, and the president didn't nominate two people in the selection committee, and people for 3 or 4 months, they do not get green tariffs, and they pay the principal and percentage, and even when these exemplary projects are implemented, but if the state do not provide, so what can we do? So why do you address the press? Why don't you resolve these issues with the government? And about 10% that goes back, could you tell us more about it? Who returns and how the creditors respond on this? In the Committee on Foreign Affairs for the last 3 years, we actively have hearings, first in 2015. These were committee hearings, the mechanism of efficient and target use of international assistance. and the government of the Ministry of Economy launched the site. Before there was no site. Now we have it, and Hanna Hopko, she was forced to leave the ministry, and the department was reorganized that dealt with international technical assistance, grants, and loans, and they tried to structure all this. And also during the last year, in the framework of advocacy of the new European investment plan for Ukraine, we won't call it Marshall Plan. In each of the capitals, Brussels, Washington, so they say your absorption capacity, the money that you have, is really low. That's why you should focus on how to invest in people to make it more technically possible not to have this 49%. And we addressed the government and had meetings in order to form some strategy. And as parliamentarians, we raised this issue at the level of committee, and there is a counting chamber report that analyzed the situation, and we have recommendations, and it is clearly said that the government didn't implement the measures that were recommended by the counting chamber. And also the summit of Eastern Partnership, they announced further technical assistance, but where is the strategy, the priorities in Ukraine in order to increase the GDP, not like in 2016, to have 5 or 7%? Ukrainian economy is in dynamics, and if we efficiently analyze the situation. So now we work closely with analytical centers. Now we would like to draw attention to this report, and that the government should develop the strategy of the priorities and the fields, and why 400 million from European Investment Bank. If you look at the report of the chamber, every field presents its own figures, so there is some competition between the ministries who will be responsible for this money, and it delays the launch of these loans. But all the agreements were ratified in 2016, and we pay percentage, and these programs are not implemented properly. In 2014-2016, $103 million was returned, 46 million. This is a modernization of state finances project. The Ministry of Finance returned it. The official reason for this, that a part of money is absent for co-financing, 15 million for co-financing is absent, but the real reason was at that time they started to write the strategy of the state finances that was adopted later, and this is the issue connected with a strategic aspect. So we got money, we adopted the project, 65 million and 50 million credit money, and then sometime 1 year later we rejected it. Used part of money but rejected the rest. So if we look at the components of these projects, the expenditures on them, this is not a priority. So these expenditures are doubtful. Unfortunately, I do not have information about the others. You can find it in the report, or you can send your request to get information. I would like to say openly, not all the projects that are proposed are useful for Ukraine, and we should always defend our national interests, because in international organizations they have their own lobbies to earn on Ukraine, and I spoke with our colleagues who work on proper positions, and they say that people come and lobby and do everything possible, go to the minister, not to the specialists who know about it. That's why we should understand what we sign, and there should be proper state positions. Second, why we address the press? This is the good question. In normal country where the institutions work, when this report is printed, I believe someone should resign and new people should be hired to work efficiently. When this didn't happen, we as for Euro optimists, we came up with an address. It was on our official site. We spoke with the officials. They said that we know about the situation, but we have many other problems to resolve. We didn't have proper response. And we, as people's deputies, we have only one instrument. This is openness. And the government, they fear of criticism. And there is no proper rotation in the chamber, and people, they do not have a political carte blanche, and they still do it, but our counting chamber should be more efficient. Energy regulator is not working. So you understand that the regulator adopts the tariffs and the conditions, and we do not have the heads of the 7 committees, we do not have 3 or 4 ministers, no rotation of CEC. We have dysfunctional institutions that are headed by acting heads, Ukrzaliznytsia and so on, and the only thing we can do efficiently, this is communication with press and revealing the facts in order that the government respond. But I believe that they do not react on this, because there are many more problems than the funds of international organizations for the government. And also I would like to say that the useful agreements are blocked by bureaucracy, and there are cases why, for example, agreements are not signed. For example, a clerk that gets 6,000 or 5,000 blocked the agreement for several million, because otherwise he should report monthly about his activity, and there was functional analysis why it is so, and he will be able to get a translation of this report. So then this agreement was signed, and there should be proper willingness to work, not to steal from the budget. So the key message to the government and to the parliament, based on this report, we have a lot of challenges facing us, and we need support of the West in order to stimulate the development of Ukrainian economy through international loans. So we should do our home task. We should increase our institutional capabilities, and the donors, they are ready to create training and educational programs. Of course, we should also do this, and we are open. And in the committee, we have several meetings about the key areas, about investment plans, and we hope for 10 or 15 projects, and we await for concrete steps.